More shit. The movie continues. The world oligarch seems content to shove disgusting shit down our waiting and open mouths. This has been happening for most of recorded society. The ruling class shits down our throats, both politically and economically, with what they feed us. Why would this set of affairs be the case? The world oligarch shits down our throats from their castles, and groves, and secret services, both to keep us in place, and to pollute us. By polluting our bodies, they pollute our souls, and spirits. They feed us shit to treat us like shit. And it keeps us in our place, like filth-eating swine. Time to resist. Time to throw off the shackles of oppression. No more eating shit for the autarky. You may think, as you tuck into your middle-class meals and existences, that no one forces you to eat shit. This is not true. The majority of the world, such as in India, and Africa, and the Caribbean, must eat shit to survive. This usually takes the form of dirt, mud, and sewerage patties, baked in the burning sun. These provide the barest sustenance. Yet, the majority of the world is forced to live on this muck daily. And we, as the middle class, are only one step above them. The consequences of the mad cow disease is still to be visited in our community, with the filter feed that was fed to our livestock. Brain-corroding diseases, such as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, or CJD, lie dormant, in unknown victims, across the world, stemming from England, where the appalling, big business agri-farming, mainly took place. This is the consequence of living off shit. While the world oligarchs live off GMO-free and clean foods, we are fed the muck that falls from the table, and that is poisoned. It kills, and malforms, our children, just as surely as shit cakes do. Or the baby formula, sold to third world mothers, by Nestlé, that killed so many malnourished infants. Monsanto controls world agriculture, by grabbing lowly, small crop farmers, in the third world, by the balls, and forcing them to give up their seeds, and purchase expensive suicide seeds, that are genetically programmed to die after a single season, forcing the farmer to buy new seeds once more, trapped, over and over again, in a corporate captive market. The rainwater that falls from the sky is being made illegal by world organizations, so that the most natural act on the planet becomes a criminal act for farmers and irrigators. Large agri-corporations, owned by Queen Elizabeth, who owns most of the arable land on the planet, muscle small sharecroppers out of the market by forcing them to buy pesticides and fertilizers, by undercutting their markets, and then taking over their land before it has almost turned into arid dust bowls. Islands, made of the bird shit that makes the hyper-fertilizers that deplete land, are steadily eroded and polluted by agri-industry. The islanders are encouraged by the first world countries that buy the shit super-fertilizer from them to, in turn, spend their profits on real estate in first world countries. Why? Because the islanders are slowly destroying their own homeland's ecosystem, in a stupid and short-sighted manner, unused to the machinations of the globalized first world. An example of such pseudo-investment is Nauru House, in Melbourne, a skyscraper that cannot be filled, built from the profits of mined island bird shit, now spread on Australia's crops, and depleting the soil forever. The oligarchs are injecting us with, and making us swallow, shit medications. The Spanish influenza of 1918 was always put down to a mystery cause. This was aside from the obvious fact that Europe had been for the previous 4 years of the Great War, a wasteland and meat mincer of millions of rotting, unburied corpses. Also, at the close of the First World War, Both sides were experimenting with biological warfare, on a scale unprecedented in human history, that would herald in the biological horrors of the latter 20th century, Cold War. During the 1930s, when eugenics was reaching its height of popularity, first in the United States of America, and then in Nazi Germany, America carried out secret, biological and medical experiments, at Tuskegee, upon unaware Afro-Americans, involving the injection of syphilis, that continued into the 1970s, and beyond. The Americans also were guilty of conducting germ warfare against the Chinese and North Korean communists during the Korean War, testing diseases on North Korean prisoners, and dropping bombs, filled with infected, plague-spreading insects, from their aircraft. The U.S. Army had learned of these techniques from their own experimentation and information they had captured from Japanese scientists of the Unit 731. The Japanese Imperial Army's Unit 731 operated out of Harbin, in China, manufacturing plagues and pestilence that the Japanese military doctors grew there, in enormous laboratory vats, in a special, secret facility there. The Japanese army attacked the Chinese with both biological and chemical weapons during their invasion on soldiers, guerrillas, and civilians. Allied prisoners were reserved, along with Chinese captured, to be tested with germ grenades, tied and staked out, in radiating circles, in the test explosions, and their fatal sickness, monitored coldly, without treatment. Allied prisoners, code-named logs, were deliberately left out, to freeze, in the Chinese snow, to test frostbite wounds, and were struck with iron bars, in various bizarre, and sadistic, medical tests. The prisoner logs were then vivisected alive, with meat bandsaws, to examine the frozen human flesh inside. When the U.S. military authorities finally caught up with the Japanese doctors of Unit 731, instead of justly prosecuting them as the grotesque war criminals they were, the Americans offered to exchange immunity to the Japanese doctors for their horrendous information they had gained during the Second World War, involving prisoners, about chemical and biological warfare, this time, to use it against the USA's former allies, the Russian Communists, in the Cold War. Having had their terrible crimes hushed up by the U.S. military, the Japanese doctors and scientists from Unit 731 went on to illustrious careers in the Japanese medical and frozen foods industries. Many former Unit 731 members gained high positions in the Japanese Green Cross, their equivalent of the International Red Cross. Many continued to utilize human specimens in their hospitals, once harvested by the Japanese wartime doctors from their dying Allied victims. Curiously, the flesh freezing techniques and research, garnered by Unit 731, were later used by Japanese and American frozen foods industries. This was pioneered in the seafoods industry, where other former members of Unit 731 earned positions in Japanese, long-range, whaling companies. These same, right-wing, Japanese, whaling companies, that aggressively invade others' territories, and fly the Imperial Japanese Rag, have funded the gun-toting, and wacky, South Korean, ultra-right-wing, cult leader, of the Moonies. Recently, bones, suspected to be those of Allied prisoners of war, who were experimented on, and vivisected, were discovered, in the basement of a former Unit 731 building in Japan, proving these experiments took place on their home soil, of an extremely rightist culture.
I now believe, Flame, which hither ye have brought from regions where I reign. Ye fools and priests, I spit upon your fire!